guys, this is Desi the Blonde at MSN.com, you know me. Okay, I'm going to tell you about a book I read yesterday. It's called The Circle 8, Caleb, by Emma Lynn. The book is about a family that lives out in the desert type thing, and there's 8 of them, 8 kids. The parents were killed when most of the kids were young, and their one younger brother was kidnapped. They thought he might have been killed, but they were looking for him for 5 years. His name was Benji. And the story goes on that Caleb, by the time he was 18, 19 years old, he decided he'd leave. He went into the Rangers. As you know, the Rangers are Texas Rangers, and they go throughout Texas, and they have the authority to arrest anybody and anything. And usually what they do is they turn around and go in, and back then they would go in what they call squatters, you know. People would turn around and think they bought the land but didn't buy it, or, you know, stuff like that. Or if he had to go and pick up some wanted criminals, he did that. Well, Caleb was, the only time Caleb came home is usually once in the blue moon, that, like they say, once in the blue moon, but he would come in, and the one brother, they were running the ranch, you know, the older brother's running the ranch, plus he has, the older sister turned around and got married to an ex-ranger, and she was pregnant, and everybody's waiting for her to have her baby. Everybody has girls on the ranch. There's no, except for the boys that were raised on the ranch, there's no boys, you know, so they were hoping she would have a boy family, and she did. But the story goes on that, you know, the mom and dad were murdered. They buried them out in the back of the property, but they could never find Benji. Back then, the little boy was blonde, blue eyes and brown hair. So they turned around and somebody kidnapped him, you know, sold him in Mexico, like they do. And Caleb, since he was a ranger, he was always looking for him, looking, you know, all over the place, Texas and stuff, that he had to go. Well, Caleb had to have a thing. He come in, his boss said, you got to go out the farther side of Texas, which is about 200 miles from his ranch. And first, before he went to go pick up this person, he went home to see everybody, just for half a day. His Mexican housekeeper, who is like a mother to everybody, you know, told him, you know, mijo, you need to settle down. You need to get you a wife. No, I'm never going to get married. Don't worry about it. I'm never going to get married. Well, she had a certain day. Thursday was Mexican beans and tortillas. So that day he was able to be there, and his little sister came up, and the girls are, you know, back then they didn't like to wear pants. You know, they're not supposed to wear pants. They all wore dresses, but this one sister said, the hell with it. She wore pants. She did chores just like the men did, and she rode horses twice as fast as the men did. She chopped her hair off. She had long blonde hair, and he kept telling her, you need to keep your hair long. You're supposed to be a woman. And he had some nieces that were twins, his brother's kids. You know, they don't get to see him. He goes, God, you guys are getting big, you know. I need to come back more. And so he decided he had to leave before, you know, dark. So he turned around, and his sister was being a little nosy little thing. So as soon as they were leaving, the housekeeper asked him, you know, I wonder where he's going. And she goes, he's going about 200 miles from here to pick up a Smitty and get him off the property. And he goes, how do you know that? Well, I went through his saddlebags. I needed to find out what was going on, where he's at. Well, that's a good idea, but, we're not supposed to be being nosy. I don't care. He's my brother. I don't care. So Caleb goes, and, he's had a rough time for a couple of weeks. Because he's had to bring in a couple of different people, and, he doesn't get that much sleep. He sleeps on the ground, or every once in a while one of the places will turn around, tell him to come on in and have a meal with him, the family will. And him and his faithful horse decided to go traveling. Well, they didn't know the Smitty, her name, it was a woman, and women are not allowed to own land back then. And what it was is her parents were killed in the fire. She said that all she could bury him was the ashes out back, because the house burnt down. So her and her husband moved into the shanty, which was supposedly the Smith's thing, to where you store stuff for the you store your extra iron and stuff for her Smith. Well, her husband dies, and Aurora is turned around and has to take all this responsibility on herself. She paid back his bills. He had all kinds of markers out. You owe me this, you owe me that. And so she made tools, you name it, gates, and everything that, whatever somebody needed, horseshoes, she shoot their horses for them. Made them branding irons just to pay him back. She was just barely making enough money to eat and feed herself. And here comes Caleb. Tall, dark, and handsome. And he walks into the smith shop, and he goes, "Is Rory here?" And he looked at her. She goes, "What do you need him for?" Well, he asked to leave the property. And she turned around and looked at him, and he goes, "You're a woman." She said, "What's the big deal about it?" And she takes her apron off, hangs it up, and they go outside to talk. She goes, "I have to do some tools. I have to get these tools done so I can get some money. And then whatever they owe, whatever my dad or them owed, I'll pay it if I can find, to get the money." No women are allowed to own property. Since when? Since the law states. All right. Well, Aurora decided she was going to play some little games with him. So Caleb turned around, tied his horse to a tree. And she's sitting inside the smithy. And he kept asking her, "Why are you doing this? You're going to get burned." She goes, "No, I've never been burnt. The only thing I did is when I was a kid, I broke my arm, but that's about it. My dad taught me a profession, that's what I need." Okay. Well, we need to get this profession cleared up and put out, because you got to leave the land. She said, "Well, let me finish my tools." He said, "No, you can't, but we got to get you out here because Texas owns this property. The state of Texas owns the property." All right. So she bubbles up the fire, makes it all hot and steamy in there. She takes off the door, and he doesn't know where she's going because he can't see her. He thinks the place is on fire. So he turns around, looks for her. She's up on the roof, which is kind of funny because, you wouldn't think a woman would climb a roof, but she did because she had pants on, so, hey, it didn't matter. And he looked into the shack, if you want to call it a shack, and said, "Well, no, she's not in here. There's no way she could get 6 inches off that ground." And so he decided he's going to camp out right in front of a tree. Well, what it was is when she climbed back out off the roof, she was only a couple feet from him. But she fell during the night when she fell asleep. One of the branches snapped and poked the side of her side. And what happened was she got knocked unconscious. Well, Caleb picked her up, and she told him, "You got to take me to the hacienda, to the doctors at the hacienda." And he said, "How far is it?" She said, "About 20 miles from here or so." And he said, "The only way I'm going to be able to carry you is if I put you over my horse and then take you up there." And she couldn't agree with him because she was unconscious. She was bleeding. So he took his shirt off and tied it around her so he can try to stop the blood. Well, he gets up to the hacienda. She said, "There's going to be 2 guards at the gate. They're going to ask you what you want. Tell them you need to see the doctor." And sure enough, there was 2 guards at the gate. Big wrought iron gate, across the hacienda. And she said, "Tell them, Rory needs to come in." So they let him in. The one guard walks him up to the house. Well, the gentleman that owns the house is out on the porch smoking a cigar. And he goes, "What can I do for you?" He said, "Rory got hurt and she's unconscious. We need to get the branch out of her." And he said, she needs a doctor." So he said, "Okay." He had the guy help her. They took her into a blue room, put her on the bed. They took her shoes off. The guy took off with the shoes. He didn't think nothing of it. "Okay, that's all right, they'll be back." Well, they turned around, and they used to use Landium back then. It was like a knockout medicine. And Rory said, "No, I don't want that shit." So they took off her clothes and had to cut. She was binding herself because there was a woman was not supposed to own a business either. Well, she needed to be binded so that they could think she was a man. Well, she wasn't, but they unbound her, and then the doctor had to take the thing, take 3 guys to hold her down, and she finally blacked out from the pain. When she did, she come to. She was bandaged, and Caleb was washing her, and she said, "What the hell are you doing?" In other words, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm washing the blood off of you." He said, your shirt's torn." He said, "I have to give you my other shirt." And so he went and got his other shirt, gave it to her. And a little boy walks in. And she said, "Marcelo." Well, Marcelo's nodded, yeah. And the little boy looked up at Caleb and he goes, "That's not Marcelo." And she goes, "What do you mean?" "That's my brother, Benji." And then he turned around, looked down, he bent down and goes, "Are you Benji?" And Marcelo said, "Yes, I'm Benji." He's shaking his head, yeah. And so Marcelo left the room. And so Caleb and Rory are there. Rory gets up and says, "I'm hungry. I want some milk." "Okay." Well, she told him how to get to the kitchen. So he went into the kitchen, and while he was in the kitchen, he was using the pump to clean off his shirt. That he had got blood all over it. And then he figured, well, I'm going to go see if there's any food in here. And he looked down, and he found this little, like, walk-in cooler type thing. Well, that's pretty cool. And I'll give some ham and a couple cans of peaches and some stuff. He put them in his pockets, and all of a sudden, here comes the woman of the house. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I scared you." He said, she wanted some milk, fresh milk, and he said, "I found you milk," and I was going to take her a glass of milk. And we're both hungry, because we both knew that one of us had eaten. She said, "Okay, don't worry about it. I'll make you up a platter." So what she did is she took a loaf of bread, started cutting it up, put cheese, ham, and a couple other things on the tray, and the milk. And then he goes, the little boy, Marcelo, walks back in and goes, she says, you know, Papa said, don't be up late, you know. And he said, okay, like, okay. And then she takes it in there, and she says, Rory, I didn't know you were here. And so Rory goes, I got hurt, I had to come see the doc. She said, I'll pay the doc as soon as I get back. No, don't worry about it. Well, she left, and Rory drank the milk. She said, damn, that was good milk. Yeah, it's good milk. Well, one and one's starting adding up. The little boy comes back in, Marcelo comes back in, and he looks at Rory and looks at Caleb, and he says, Caleb turned around and said, do you know how to get out of this house? He said, mm-hmm. Well, Rory didn't have no shoes, so she's walking barefooted. And Caleb is walking on his toes so that he don't make no noise. They go into this one room, like a big den, and the little one turns around, climbs into a big urn type thing, and pushes a button. And all of a sudden the wall pops open. Well, he looks in there, and it's wide enough for somebody to crawl through. So Marcelo goes first, Rory goes second, Caleb is third. And Caleb is carrying the food and stuff that she had given him. And then they twist and turn throughout the house, and they finally get to the outside door. Well, Rory's claustrophobic, and she's freaking out real bad. Plus, she started bleeding again. Okay, she shouldn't have been moving. But the thing was, they wanted to get out of the house because they know something was wrong with that house. So Caleb comes up around him and asks Rory how many, and he says 3, like 3. And so they wait, and Rory thinks it's almost an hour. It's only a few minutes, but to Rory it's almost an hour. They left. She said it's probably the sentries. And so Rory gets them out. They go out, and they're out in this really pretty garden. And Marcelo keeps walking around. So he's never been outside, but he knows how to get to the thing. He said, there's got to be a path out here. Well, sure was, and it was covered. It was the hacienda had a big, huge fence around it. So he figured out how to open the gate, and Rory and Marcelo was to leap by the gate, take the step that he gave him, and he said, turn around, run as far as you can to the woods, hide, I'll come back after you. He said, if you hear anything, stay down. And they asked him, what are you going to do? I got to go around and get my horse. He said, a horse ain't worth the shit. He goes, my horse is worth it. So he goes, walks around, back around the house. The guys didn't even realize what he was doing, you know. He comes in, walks out the front door. He had dirt all over his pants. They didn't think nothing of it. You know, here he is, a ranger. And so he gets on his horse. He gives the guy some smokes. And he says, I got to go back up to her house and get her some stuff, and I'll be back. And okay, you know. So he opens up the gate and lets him out. And he comes up, and he's heading up towards the woods and finds Rory and Marcelo, but she's almost passed out again. So before she completely passes out, he asks her, how far do I have to go to avoid that bridge? She said about 2 miles around. So they did. He puts her and Marcelo up on the horse, and Marcelo won't talk. And he keeps saying, "You're Benji. I know you're my Benji. And I'm going to take you home." Well, they get down to Rory's place. And he tells Marcelo, "Can you get some water for the horse? And help me take care of Rory." So they get her in the house, let her sleep. He grabs another bedroll. That's Marcelo's sleep. And he grabs his bedroll and crashes for the day. Well, he tells them, "You got to get up, guys. We've got to pick up as much as we can. We got to leave." And then he asks her, "Do you have a horse?" She says, "No, but I got a mule." All right? Well, she wants to take her Smitty stuff. She can't take it. Nope. "Well, I want my hammer and my apple." All right. So he packs her a bag, gets a shirt from the house that was her ex-husband's, puts it on. It's a little tight, but who cares? And puts some stuff, her brush, soap, and some stuff in the bag. Puts it by the front door. Asks Marcelo to go get, has he ever done a horse? And no. Okay. So he goes up, finds a mule, saddles her, and he says, "Will she keep up with us?" "Yep, she'll keep up with us." Okay. So he saddles Cora, her mule, and his horse is saddled and waiting to go. And he goes, "I don't know what we're going to do, but we've got to get out of here before they come." He said, "We got less than 2 hours and they'll probably come in after us." So they did. Well, Rory's sick still, and she's bleeding. She's running a fever. So they got to camp out in caves. When they camp up in the caves, Marcelo takes his own responsibility, takes care of the animals in another cave, and Caleb has the food and everything, and puts a small fire. Marcelo finds this rock that looks like a bowl, so he has to heat it up so that he can turn around and keep the wound washed. Well, they stayed in the cave for 3 days. They were only hoping to stay in one, but they ended up staying in there 3 days. Marcelo was out scavenging berries and stuff, making sure nobody followed them. So they're on their way back. They're heading back home. Caleb said, "I'm going to take you home." He said, "We'll figure out something after we get home." And Benji, "You got all your brothers and sisters at home." But Benji wouldn't talk. Okay. Well, it goes on for a couple more days. You know, they have to stop because they have to use the restroom or sleep. Well, they're almost close to the ranch, and something happens. But this is where I'm going to end at. But the story is a really good story. And I'm hoping that she will make a run off with Caleb and Aurora and Benji. Because I think this book could be a sequel, for 2 more books at least. Because you got 8 members in the family. Hey, all the kids will love the book. I give this a 5. It's going on Goodreads. I'll be blogging on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, putting it on YouTube, putting it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other places. So just keep looking and you'll see it. Okay, guys? I'm Desi the Blonde at MSN.com.